I call this meeting of the Madison Elementary School District Governing Board to order. Ms. Humphrey, can you do the roll?
President Causey, Vice President Hunt,
Here.
Member Gresham,
Here.
Member Holcomb,
Here.
Member Thompson.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Thompson, second by Mr. Holcomb. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. And now I'll go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't believe there's any need for an executive session. Okay, proceed to item 3.1, Superintendent's Report.
Vice President Hunt, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, thank you once again to our staff, students, parents, and community members for a really, truly great first 10 days of school. Today was actually day 11. Through everyone's hard work, patience, and the Madison team community spirit, we had a great opening to the 2026-27 school year. And I want to give an extra special shout out to Rose Lane for moving into the new building, getting everything up and running. And I heard dismissal, drop off, and pickup is running swimmingly at our new school. So that's wonderful. Tonight, Assistant Superintendent Scott Thompson will give us a detailed enrollment report. After the 10th day of school, our enrollment begins to stabilize. Until October 1st, it will continue to fluctuate, so we'll hear some more details later in the meeting. Don't forget, parents, to sign up for Parent Square. The application will enhance your home-to-school communication. You can also design how and when you want to receive communication, so you can tailor it for yourself, and you can see more than one child. And even if your student is in a high school district and they use Parent Square, where you can see it all in one place, it's pretty cool. So I encourage you to check out that feature and let us know if you have any questions. I want to give a major kudos to our communication team for putting out a new edition of our Madison magazine, The Madison Scene. If you have not seen it, be sure to get a copy. It also highlights the new logo for Rose Lane, our Madison Rising Stars, right on the cover. Nice job, communications.
Thank you, Dr. Guerin. We'll move on to Governing Board member reports. Mr. Holcomb.
Don't have much to report today, but I do think, yeah, the Madison Scene is something that I think is really special, and I hope everybody takes the time to review that. I'm very happy that we're having a good opening. I'm looking forward to a good and exciting year, and that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Gresham.
I also don't think I have anything to report.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. Just a couple quick things. Want to congratulate all the kids who have tried out for sports in the middle schools. I think practices have started. Congratulations to all those students on the cross-country teams, the volleyball teams, and the flag football teams. I know it's hot out there, and appreciate all that you do to get ready for those sports. Also want to thank everyone for a great opening as the school year has started. And then finally, I just want to remind everyone that it's election season, and there's at least one issue on the ballot that deeply impacts schools. I'm sure at some point later we will be highlighting how there could be adverse impacts for Madison, but just want to flag that for parents, families, and community members. That's all I have for today.
Great, thank you. I just want to say thank you to everybody, classified, certified administration, for a really smooth opening. It's been, I think, probably a hectic couple of weeks here as we've gotten off to start, but the schools look great. The students are safe, and education is happening in Madison. I also just want to say a special thank you to our bus drivers. I see them all over the city navigating one of the most complicated driving environments in the country in our community, and they have precious cargo on board, and they do it well. They do it with a clear eye to keeping everybody safe and get everybody where they need to be on time. So thank you to the bus drivers who doing really tough work in a tough city to do it in. We'll now move on to consent items. If anybody wants to discuss anything, we can. If not, I'll hear a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Gresham. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Moving on to item 5, call to the public. Pursuant to board policy, time has been set aside for a call to the public. This is an opportunity for individuals to address the entire board in a public setting to express their views or concerns. State law limits our ability to respond to comments made during the call to the public. However, we do hear your remarks and ask the superintendent to follow up and to provide us with information regarding any issues raised. To keep us on schedule, each speaker has no more than 3 minutes. I do not see any calls to the public in the room. Are there any online, Ms. Humphrey?
We have no calls to public.
No calls to the public, so we'll continue to move on. We'll now move to first read policies. Dr. Guerin.
Thank you, Vice President Hunt, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. We're going to have Mr. Thompson really take over the rest of the meeting. And so he's going to start with some very exciting policy reads. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Dr. Guerin and Governing Board. Yes, we're doing a bit of housekeeping here to get through these first reads. The very first one with the ethics, I don't love the title, right? It just kind of throws you off as to what we're talking about here. But basically, there's been a longstanding conversation, I guess, with the Auditor General about feeding employees and gift of public funds. And because we are a taxpayer-funded organization, we have to follow certain guidelines. And it feels like those guidelines have just gotten kind of more and more and more restrictive, and this is the continuation of that path. So this evening, you are looking at the first read of added to a section per ASBA under purchasing ethics, basically just proactively having the board say, yes, we agree with paying for food for our employees under the circumstances that are allowed. In the past, you already had that statement, but it wasn't quite as affirmative as this statement is. That's the biggest change to it. The second piece that you are not going to be voting on, but just kind of goes side and side with that, is a regulation on how much we will spend per employee on those. So we're putting a box around how much we'll spend, and we're affirmatively, if you approve this, would be saying, yes, we agree with this. So that's the concept behind that change, and again, this is just first read for your information. If there are any questions, I'll move on to the next.
Any questions?
I do, and I apologize.
No,
I
it's
was
okay.
looking at it. I think, and I was trying to pull this. If we pull this up, I think it's actually in the regulation, and it deals with. I think it's in the second paragraph. I apologize. I didn't bring mine down, and it talks about it where it says all food purchases must be approved by the board. My understanding of the purpose of that language is that the board approves, types of things that we purchase, or that the way it's written, it can be read, and if somebody wanted to come and make a fuss, that every purchase of food would have to be approved by the board. I'd ask that you take a look at that language, so it makes it very clear that it's categories or things of purchase, but not that every purchase has to come back, that we have to set the deadline, or excuse me, the guidelines for that. So am I making sense for a change?
I'm just trying to read quickly.
Yeah.
So food and beverage purchases shall be approved in advance. I think you're talking about the very first sentence then?
Yeah, that's correct. See, because that could be read to be every purchase of food.
Mr. Holcomb, if I may,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think that the way I read that is that we adopt a policy. Within the policy, purchase away, but we're required to approve if it's outside of those parameters.
Yes.
Is that
Well,
accurate?
and I would state as well that we have to keep in mind there's a previous paragraph that already existed saying the governing board may approve food and beverages at school district events, including trainings, and so you kind of have the context. I don't disagree with you on the language, but I think what ASBA was trying to do is build off the previous paragraph.
And I understand that, but having litigated for 40 years, it's ambiguities
YA.
that put my kids through college and paid
Yeah,
my boat
but we
payments
certainly
when I
can
had a
look
boat.
at it, again, this is their template, not ours.
Yeah, and we've had issues again. That one, just as soon as I read it, I thought,
Just
that's
bothered
a
you.
problem.
I got
Because
you.
of somebody, because they say, because it's the purchase that says it has to
Mm-hmm.
be approved of all food, and in policies or purchases up, man, if they mean to say purchases outside the policy, it should say that.
We can certainly look at it between now, that is the purpose of this process, right?
That's exactly,
you
that's
very
why I'm
much.
bringing it up on first read. That's what she told me I had to do.
That is correct. That's why we do this first read, so thank you.
Can I also chime in, because I think I saw what you're talking about on the first one, the DJ, PA 1049 DJ said the added language is food and beverage purchases shall be approved in advance by the governing board, period. So I think maybe that's the one you read, because I
Yeah,
also,
exactly.
when I first saw that too, I was like, what? And then when I read the other one, I was like, oh, okay, but maybe we need to change that. Yeah, that first sentence there.
Yeah.
We will
Yes.
certainly look at that.
That
and-
first underlined sentence in the actual policy
F is
is the
kinda-
one that could be defined more.
I think the recommendation is to put some context on that first sentence.
Or, I think what the context is that purchases, we set the parameters.
And that this is for, this all is intended for employee training and stuff like that.
Right.
This is not a feeding children policy, so.
Right. But I don't want to have it that somebody argues that we have to come back, we have to put
Gotcha.
that on each.
Any other comments on that? Thank you. The second first read is simply the Auditor General changed the quotes threshold. So in the past, any one vendor, and understand that in the purchasing world, this is how much we spend per year per vendor. That's how it's looked at in the audit. So if we anticipate any purchases with one vendor, in the past it was $10,000, now they've moved it to $15,000. We then have to achieve 3 written quotes showing that we did our due diligence in qualifying that use of that vendor. So all they've done is move the threshold from 10,000 to 15,000, and again, it's per vendor, per year, total amount spent. And that's it.
Ms. Thompson?
Just really quickly, I think this one is in order. I think I was working at the State Board of Education when the limit moved from 5 to 10, and it had taken decades to move from
Yes.
5 to 10. I think this has just been 10 or 15 years, so it's good movement to keep up with.
Not sure it kept up with inflation, but
Well,
it definitely is nice to see
It's
it
a better
happen.
attempt moving from 10 to 15 than it was from 5 to 10. So I know that relieves some administrative burden, so glad to see this.
And within less than 20 years.
Well, and, because doing the government work that I've done, this is an ongoing thing about whether these are too low, inappropriate, just from a practical standpoint. Is the 15 still too low? For, I mean, it's, one meal could be the.
I think that's a hard question for the guy that used to work at the largest district to say. I think for Madison, it's much better and not necessarily as difficult for a Mesa Public Schools. 15 is probably too low because everything they do is going to be over. But for our district, I think it improves some flexibility, and I haven't seen this limit be as challenging here as I did in my former district. That's all I can
Yeah,
say.
I was just wondering, because it's almost any, I'm trying to think of what purchases we'd have with a vendor that would be less than $15,000.
It tends to be the small one-off purchases, not the regular things that we're buying, yeah, for sure. But that's kind of true across the board. And when we're buying something on the regular, every year, year after year. We really should have some context behind that anyway. So I think having the purchasing, I mean, I'd like to see it higher just because of the administrative burden, but I don't think it's inappropriate that that we have some documentation on why we choose, who we choose and who we purchase from.
As long as you're comfortable with it, that's
Yeah, because, again, the written isn't too high a standard. If we were talking about, I'd rather actually see the higher level of the bid threshold for formal bids and stuff. That's really where I'd rather see a conversation. But in this particular case, I think it's helpful, but I don't think it's changing a whole lot for us. It's just going to be helpful.
Well, if you think it's appropriate at the higher bid, because you're right, because there's a cost, well, the administrative
For the work,
cost and
yep.
to do that type of bidding, and that's the thing. If you think that's appropriate to change, I would appreciate it if you brought that back to us.
Well, I can't do that because that's set by the state. So we are just matching what the state requires us to have, and so I cannot change.
Can't go beyond, okay,
can't go beyond.
we're at the top.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, and what's required, there are some caveats within that, but in general, the bidding thresholds are set by the state, and we can't change that.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So those are all, those should be all of our first reads. Okay, great. We'll move on to item 7.1, enrollment update. Mr. Thompson.
I'll just continue the Mr. Thompson show here. Okay, so the tale of two districts. Just because we started out a lot different last year, so kudos to AI and our staff who tracked enrollment every day for every school all last year. I didn't even ask for that, and they had done that, and it was really, really helpful information. I was planning to start doing that this year, but one of our team members in the SIS team, she tracked all this information. I was able to feed it into AI, and it quickly picked up two trends that I had not seen last year. So very interestingly enough, to give us context for the conversation we're about to have for this year, we had enrollment growth up to about September 11th, about 33 kids. So we kind of started low, went up, and then ironically lost 28 of them. So we kind of ended up right where we started, which didn't hit my radar until this analysis. So I think this is where sometimes those tools can be super helpful. So getting into this year's enrollment, here's just the numbers. This is as of 8/19, so this is a little dated. We're a little different this year because we had a little bit later started because of the whole calendar shift. So I'm seeing a very different type of trend with the numbers. But the good news was, if there's good news here, that we started a little higher than our 40th day, our October 1st date last year. These are the first 8 days of trending. As was indicated, we're now on day 11, but again, this was Friday. So we're just trying to give you as much data as we can, and of course, things keep changing as we move along. So we started a little higher than last year, and this is comparing the first day against the first day. So this is not against a 40th day or a 100th day. This particular data is saying, okay, what did we look like on day one last year? What did we look like on day one this year? So we started a little higher, but you can see right around day 7, we started to see a drop. So very steady, but unfortunately, we're moving in a negative direction. As you look at it and trying to understand it, gets a little complicated, so I'm going to try to walk through this. This information would make you feel pretty good about the district, and it should, but it has some context to it. So from a cohort analysis, so why do we look at cohort? Because we're saying, okay, the kinder class was X number of students. They're going on to first grade. Did we keep them, or did they go away? And you can see here that many of our cohorts are outperforming or doing at least as good as they did last year, with the exception of 2. 2 of which are excelling, which is all of a sudden we're receiving an influx of kids in first grade. Might be a conversation in the future around that. And then we're also seeing a big influx of kids around 6th grade this particular year. So with that, you see these notable increases. Unfortunately, when I look at that in summary, we put it against the fact that at the time when I created this, we were down 44 students. Looking at it just before I walked in, we're down quite a bit more than that, as we've seen the 10-day drop here on the 11th day, as students who don't return and we thought maybe would but never really did finally come off the books. And I will say, our staff has done, all the way down to the schools, are doing an amazing job of really keeping up on the data with the kids this year. So we didn't see a big drop of students, but we did see some additional drop here in the last 2 days. So we're down actually now about 86 students against the 40th day, about 70 students against our 100th day. We're still in the realm of 1% to 1.5% decline, which is very, very reasonable, as we heard Mr. Bramer talk to us last year about. There's just less kids, right? So I think what's really important to that is the 3rd and 6th grades. When you look at those, they are down 111 kids just from the cohort that was there before, and now this year they're just smaller classes. There's just less kids. That's not us losing kids. That's not any. So we have a big 8th grade kind of graduate. We have a good kinder come in, but when you just have some of these in between grades be smaller. So the cohorts look good from a growth perspective against themselves, but when you just look grade to grade, you see some dropping. And so that's kind of offsetting our growth. And I think that's back to that story of there are just less students in the mix. And so the positive then side of that, so I'm kind of going negative, positive, is that we had an increase of new students of 23 new students, so we maintained and grew the amount of students who are new to us. And that's going to be part of our efforts, right? As the pie gets smaller, we want to attract students who have never attended our schools before. So I think this overall says to us we're very stable, we're still very popular, and parents are choosing this district as a place to bring their children. But we are living in the reality that the demographer shared with us last year, that we are just less kids. I know Dr. Guerin has talked to our neighbors. They're looking at 4 to 5% declines, many of them. We should be really celebrating these numbers. I think while it's tough to see decline, the amount of decline we're seeing is much, much less than everybody around us. And so I'm going to continue to watch. It's very interesting. I'm having trouble with this presentation a little bit because these numbers are not playing out like last year. Like I really wanted to see the kind of rise up and then the fall. But I also feel like we're just dialed in on the numbers a little bit and the kids aren't moving around quite as much. So I'm hoping that we'll settle into these numbers and not see quite as much decline from now to the 40th and 100th day. That's something we'll have to track, and I can't fully predict. But there seems to be a sense that the kids we have are the kids we have, and we're pretty solid on that. So I'm hoping for stability, and I still think we can end up, maybe just a 1.5% decline towards the 100th day. And the 100th day is all I really care about because that's our funding, right? The 40th day is an interesting point in time to look at, but the 100th day is what we're really tracking towards. And we're down about 71 kids towards the 100 day at this point. The question is, can we maintain that enrollment, maintain that ADM, and offset that? I will say also that we've got some sense that some of our subset classes, like special ed and English language, are smaller this year as well. So in the past, we've seen those weights of those students because they need special attention and additional needs come in and offset some of the decline. I don't think we're going to be seeing that either. I think we'll see that as part of the impact to our budget. So really early time to tell you where we're at on the budget, but anticipating, again, some belt tightening as we go forward because we are seeing some decline. The rest of it is all just new students at school level. You can look at that at your leisure. I'm not going to go through all those slides.
I have one quick question. So as it relates to the third and the sixth grades, any theory? I mean, I guess you can see that there could be some cohort drop-off between the elementary.
So I think, again, that's where this juxtaposition between the previous slide, because again, you look at the cohorts and we maintained really well. I mean, we're only down like 9 kids
Right.
at third grade because the second graders coming up, right? If you look at seventh to eighth, only 4. So every cohort, as those progressed, did really well.
Yeah.
It's just those 2 grades were just much smaller the year before
Sure.
than that year. So it's just less kids.
Working its way through this
It's just
system.
bubbles of less kids working their way through our system.
Ms. Thompson.
Very well.
And I can speak as a parent of the cohort that's now in 7th grade, and their kids used to be in 6th grade. I remember across the district, that group in kindergarten was enormous.
Yeah.
So some of it's just,
Yep.
one year you have, or a couple years you have a baby boom, and then it shrinks. And I think we saw that in Rick Brammer's presentation, where we've got more kids at the higher levels, and then troughs in certain places. So I think that's like you were saying, that's probably part of it. But I do remember my kids' class was the first time, for example, at Heights there were 5 kindergarten classrooms, and I don't believe there are right now anymore. It was a lot of demand, and then that shrunk. So, but it's interesting to compare that class to class versus how we're keeping cohort.
Well, and I'd say also that as you look around the edges of the cohorts, the wondering is any of the other choices having an effect? And that's where I'd go back to, if you look at the new student enrollment at the school levels and the fact that we're up, I would say no, that's not what we're seeing here at Madison. We're not seeing students, this is not students leaving. This is just less students. That's the story I see.
I'm just curious, so do we, I assume our open enrollment, we still have spaces in all our schools, like there's no wait lists or anything at any of the sites?
There are 2 schools with wait lists because they are just full.
That's good.
I think we can all imagine who they are, but we have space in many of our schools, but there are 2, Simus and Meadows, that are full at
Thank
this
you.
time. So, and that's just building capacity. That's just because we can't fit any more kids in there. But other than that, every wait list, and I will say the schools worked really hard to reach out to families. We started open enrollment earlier last year. I mean, we've made a lot of shifts that I think show up in these numbers. It's really hard to tell where and how, but I think they're there. And that's why, again, I feel like it's more stable, because we're just not seeing this kind of like chaos that we saw at the beginning of last year, where people were coming and going really quick and numbers were kind of bouncing around. The parents that we've got are the parents that picked us, and they've settled in, and we've been able to accommodate as much of that waiting list and be as aggressive on that as possible. We have some building limitations on some of the schools. We just can't put more there.
Yep.
That's
I
basically
think
where we're
it's
at.
probably safe to say that all those efforts you mentioned, and like the kindergarten roundup and all that, probably have helped keep us this stable.
Principals are doing tours. We've developed a methodology for reaching out for parents that are on waiting lists, offering other schools within to say, hey,
Yep.
if not Simus, maybe Rose, maybe one of the other schools. So we're getting better at this. And I think the numbers really do show that we're getting better. We can still do more, for sure, but we're making
Could be a
strides.
lot worse, though.
It could be worse, and that's the story. Yep.
Thank you.
Thompson, did you have something else?
Well, now I have to remember the question I was going to ask. Oh, yes, now I remember. Appreciate you bringing up the issue of what our weighted count will look like, because head count is different. I know you're just trying to count how many people are in the rooms right now, but I'm sure as we get further out, I think us all having an understanding of what that weighted count looks like, and if there are strategies for us to help showcase some of those programs that help add weight, that can be helpful, and we'll look forward to that at the appropriate time when you've got enough data to be able to share.
Yeah, that'll probably come in the form of either 2 things. One could be, depending if it's not too big, it might be more informal, where I'll just be updating you through board updates. the more formal action would be we would do a December budget revision because the numbers kind of demand that we do it. And we did not do a December revision last year because we saw that we weren't going to change very much. We have to change by over 1% to be required to do it, and we didn't have more than a 1% budget change last year. If the numbers play out that we were required to, then we might have to do that December revision. But even then, it'll probably be around that time I'll have a better sense of the budget impact. So.
Thank you, and I also just want to thank all the staff who've done so much work in helping to bring families into the Madison School District. I think having not just the kindergarten roundup, but the middle school showcase now and the pre-K roundup. I remember at that last year, we had families who were already enrolling at the end of last year so they could be ready to have a spot for the following year. I think all of these strategies, including the follow-up that's being done by the district to families who might not have a spot in one school but to get in the district, I think all of those are being really helpful because, you know, from my perspective, once you're involved in a community and you know the district, you might move within the district, but it's a known quantity rather than moving outside, and I think all of those things are helpful for us in not only encouraging families to come and stay, but then word of mouth is so important. So thanks for all the staff across the district for all the work that you're doing in that vein.
I'm welcome. All right, are there any additional questions?
Yeah. Just,
Yes.
if I want, and Andre, I wanted to do, address, we got the numbers. I mean, what are you seeing at particularly Rose Lane, which we just opened a new school?
It's funny because we had our cabinet meeting today. This is definitely something I've already been doing some research on because I was inspired by just our conversations today. Last year, I think the big things we were doing was just more tours, offering a lot of options. But I realized there's some things that we can do this year to get ahead of the enrollment. I just talked to Steph, our social worker today, about, I've heard of districts that do like still looking for the right fit nights in October, November, where you're advertising to those families who maybe are trying a school and are like, you know, this might not be the best fit, and how we can advertise for something like that. And that could be at all schools, you know, and then going and singing our signature programs. We talked about the importance of, like, obviously that preschool connection. And right now I would say at Rose Lane, that's on its way, because when we have the second phase, we're going to have those 4 preschools, and that's always been a great opportunity for those families, because we'll get Heights families, we'll get Simus families that go to that preschool, but once they're there, they kind of fall in love with that culture and they stay. So that's always been a big boost for us. So that's something I think down the road. We talked about having our kinder roundups earlier in the year. Lindsay Murray's does a great job of this, and I think she does hers right in November, because then December you have that Discover Madison, and those families already have that connection with you. So that's something else I would, I can encourage the principals to do, is to have those earlier, so we're getting those families. We didn't do ours till March last year. And then I heard, there's principals doing them in November. I'm like, we have to do that in November. We got to catch those families. So that's right at that window. So as far as Rose Lane's enrollment, it's obviously less than it was last year at this time of the year, but it's steady. I'm not seeing a giant drop, but we really need to make sure we're just kind of hooking those families. I also had an idea on word of mouth, like, hey, if you referral to Rose Lane, like, could there be some sort of incentive? Because we had a couple referrals last year. I had 2 families that actually brought their friends to the fall carnival here to introduce them to me, and now they're at our school. And they're just like, we love you, the culture here is great. We told them about it. They want to meet you. I was like, fall carnival's coming up, bring them to it. So maybe they get an incentive because they referred someone to our school. So I have a lot of ideas for this because it's probably my biggest personal goal is to increase that enrollment. I know we have all our academic goals, but we have such a great culture at Rose Lane, and if parents can just come in and see it, we can hook them, and I would say that for all the schools. I'm just speaking for what I see, but the tours are my biggest, I think, game changer because of and now it's really going to help to have that beautiful campus to go along with what we share in our tours.
If I may,
Yes,
the
Mr.
idea
Malcolm.
about the carnivals, and that may be something we look at where we're, really promoting those among the schools. before we promote that more broadly.
Yeah, we invite
an
everybody,
opportunity,
the whole community.
Opportunity to come and see the schools. Maybe even, and at the carnivals, have something about programs and that, put out a table. Yeah, one of the things that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Holcomb. Dr. Guerin.
I just wanted to thank all the staff members. We've been really working on this together, a higher level of awareness, but really leaning in on innovation. So Mr. Thompson mentioned some of the changes, holding less neighborhood spots, looking at cohorts differently, calling off other wait lists, looking at numbers regularly every week in cabinet, just really pushing on where can we staff so we can staff up instead of staffing down, which is something Dr. Lumley is always encouraging us to do. So we've come together to work on this, and I think that's what, even though we're down, comparatively, we are in a very good spot, and I know it's because all of this collaborative work.
There's no doubt. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I just want to concur with Mr. Rees, that word of mouth, that is the gold standard. And I think the more that in nonprofit world, we talk about creating a culture of philanthropy where everyone feels responsible for playing a role in the development and raising the resources for that nonprofit. I think in the school district, there should be a philanthropy of like, what is our role? Every one of us, parents, teachers, administrators, board members, aunts of students, uncles of students, to raise awareness about Madison. And I think the more that we share with them, I look at Nexter all the time. Parents are always looking. It seems to be the place where people are looking for feedback about schools these days. The more that we engage, because I know there's specific schools where they have trained their parents, and you see that deployed in a very strategic way. And I think if we are a little bit more thoughtful, maybe, and again, this is more work, but in like sharing with parents, like you play a role in ensuring that our schools and therefore your kids get all the resources they need by bringing, more people in and helping us increase the number of students that we are educating. Anybody else? Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to action item 8.1, discussion and possible action to review the ASBA's proposed 2027 political agenda and review direction to the district's delegate. Mr. Hunt, or who are you? Or Ms. Gresham, that's right. That's right, we haven't put you on the
I
block
guess
quite yet.
I'm the lucky winner. He was last year.
Oh, that's
yeah.
right. Sorry, car accident will do that too.
I drew the straw. Yes, okay, so you all have gotten the whole packet from ASBA, hopefully, and have reviewed it. The only thing, and they're gonna do it again where they just do changes and we vote on the changes, but, so if you all have any suggestions or guidance from me, the only thing I want to flag, and I would like permission to either submit this, so they have items proposed for removal on the last page there. And number 5, I would like permission to either reintroduce this one or introduce something with different language, because this is an issue that's very important to me. I've spoken about this before, and it's still, gun violence is still a leading cause of death for children. And so I don't think we're taking out everything about that, and I'm not happy with that. So I would like to attempt at the assembly to keep that in some form.
Can I just ask, Mr. Holcomb, did you participate in that conversation of the legislative committee?
I did. And
Did you want to provide any guidance, just so that I'm sure she will hear from the legislative committee
Yeah, I
what the
think-
reasoning was?
I think what you'll hear from the legislative committee is there's a real push to try to streamline some of this, and was an attempt in the language to try to have language and see if these things are included, in other things. And actually, Ms. Gresham had contacted me about what that, and that's my memory of what was happening here in relation to this. That because you could have all the different things, and the thought was that those things, while important, are already really they feel is encompassed.
Do you know where because I also reached out to Lupe at ASBA, and she mentioned that they were too vague or something, so I was like, well, I'm happy to reword it, but do you know where it would be like included, or where we could include it on this giant document?
I really think, as much as anything else, it's the school safety. I think it's really looked to be incorporated into The idea was the concept of school safety, fear, and trauma, and, they have, they had that included on the immigration, but the idea that that falls under the general category of school safety. So if again, looking at this as a direction,
Yeah, maybe not that first one, maybe, but it's, I mean, I would still like to see something more specific, but.
I think really look,
I don't know if there's,
I'm thinking of it as really in two, the number two, just the safety, that those are things that are incorporated. But as I mentioned, my role, will actually have 4 members.
you're not allowed to go to the,
Huh?
or you're not allowed to vote. You can go to.
No,
but
he'll
you
be on the
can't vote.
panel.
I'll
He'll
be on the
front
panel.
to
No,
answer questions.
No, and I don't vote.
Oh, I've never done that. I didn't do that part. Okay.
I don't vote, but being a member of the committee, like being on the board, you go through the discussion and that too. Our role on the committee is to explain and help advocate for these things. But I strongly encourage, if there's things that need to be changed or you think want to change, don't hesitate to step forward and,
So they do, they have a process so that it's not all done at the time, but there's like, you can submit it in advance, so I
Right.
will.
And
I'll
I
probably do something.
strongly think if we have something here, even if you don't put it forward in advance, to have the language written out, because that's where a lot of the time is wasted. And I've spent time trying to help people get language that they go, so
Yes, and I hate
have
to,
it, have it
yeah,
more
I hate to try
prepared.
to do it there and then, yeah, try to change the wording of these existing ones, which would be a total.
Absolutely. Ms. Thompson has something to add.
nightmare. Oh, go ahead.
It seems to me that if we're looking at Roman 6, school safety and security, 1 and 2 are talking about districts implementing locally directed research-based school safety programs, mental health and well-being initiatives.
Social
I think that's trying, and social emotional initiatives. I think those are trying to maybe get to some of the ones that are being removed about, addressing self-harm and violence in communities. So I understand that, but it does seem like there's missing a physical safety item. And I agree with you, the gun violence issue is very important. Just physical safety is very important. It could be worded in a way that could be not just gun violence, but other school safety initiatives broadly that could be an item in here that could encompass
That's why I was
that.
thinking number 1 under
Yeah,
there,
one
but-
seems like it could be beefed up a tiny bit.
I'll maybe submit a couple suggestions and see what happens.
Yeah, I would support you moving something like that forward, especially because if the argument is we don't want to get too specific, they have modified the number of signatures required for CTED board candidates to align with summer school board candidates. So there is a
specific
lot of
things in there.
specifics. So, I mean, I have no
And,
problem.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, the lives of our students is a pretty important thing, I would argue, so.
Mr. Hunt, did you want to weigh in at all? Okay.
I
Mr. Holcomb.
did want, from a drafting standpoint, one of the issues too is there's a lot of discussion about things that, for example, for the technical schools, they had a number of things that they put on that, which I actually supported and we did, but they were things that the legislature couldn't do. It was actually the things that should be done, but they had the wrong focus, and I had a long discussion.
That happens a lot with this, yeah.
And if you look particularly at 4 and 5 that are being removed, the language about Arizona School Board's call on all other state, federal, that's not a
Yeah, those aren't
policy
legislative,
statement.
yeah.
And so you will get, just from experience, both what happened in the legislative and just being in that group experience, if your language is in that form, it causes a lot, people sort of shut that out. I mean, it
We could
really-
definitely
Yeah,
narrow it down, for sure.
and I encourage you to do that, and I can even help you, there at it, but I can't advocate and
Ms. Gresham, do you have the guidance that you need at this point, do you think?
Yeah, so, yeah, we
Excellent.
do need to vote on this. It's an action item, so.
All right, so who would like to propose a motion?
I move, what do we need to move?
To approve the
Approve the
adoption.
I move
Delegate Assembly.
to, oh, where's the language?
There it is. I move that the governing board authorize the district's delegate to represent the board at the ASBA Delegate Assembly and to vote in alignment with the board discussion where direction has been provided.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
It has been moved by Ms. Thompson, has been seconded by Mr. Hunt. Please vote on the motion accordingly. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the motion, say nay, and the motion carries. Moving along to item 9.1, discussion regarding future meetings. Dr. Guerin.
President Kazi, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, our next board meeting is September 15th. Don't forget, we'll start at 2:15 for our elementary school integrated action plan meeting sessions. We'll move into a regular board meeting at 6 p.m. We'll have the second read on Mr. Thompson's policies. In addition, we will have Mr. Casey George and Principal Katie Clark present on some enhancements to Madison Meadows' signature program. And then September 29th, we'll have our second round of school integrated action plans for the middle schools and MTA K-8. And at that board meeting, we're looking at a Madison Center for the Arts update, and that will be after the law conference, I believe, so we'll have an update on that as well.
Any questions regarding upcoming meetings? All right, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
Has been moved by Ms. Thompson and seconded by Mr. Hunt to adjourn. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Bye.
All opposed, nay.
Use the small one. Just try it for one.
Use the small one. And the motion carries. Oh.